ഏഴാമത് അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര ഡോക്യുമെന്ററി ഹ്രസ്വചിത്രമേളയിലേക്ക് ഏവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. ഈ മേളയുടെ ഉദ്ഘാടന ചടങ്ങിനായി ഇവിടെ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുള്ള എല്ലാ ബഹുമാന്യ വ്യക്തികളെയും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊള്ളട്ടെ. മലയാള ചലച്ചിത്ര ശാഖയ്ക്ക് ഒട്ടനവധി ഹിറ്റ് ചിത്രങ്ങൾ സമ്മാനിച്ച ചലച്ചിത്ര പ്രതിഭയും JC ഡാനിയൽ പുരസ്കൃതനുമായ J. ശശികുമാർ സാർ കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം നമ്മെ വിട്ടുപിരിഞ്ഞു. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ സ്മരണയ്ക്ക് മുന്നിൽ പ്രണാമം അർപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് അല്പസമയം മൗനമായി പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാം. Good evening, one and all. Welcome to the 7th International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala, organized by Kerala State Chalachitra Academy. The festival will run from 18th to 22nd July in Kairali, Sri and Nila theatres. Over the next 5 days, you will get to see some of the best documentaries and short films from India and the world. Once again, we welcome you to this inaugural function. For that, may I invite Padma Shri Priyadarshan, a well-known filmmaker, chairman and festival director, to welcome all our special guests and also preside over the function.
Good evening, everybody. So, we are again here for the 7th IDS FFK. It is a very, the 6th was a very big success, and I've been noticing that for the last 3 years it has been growing very well on quality and viewing. And that actually encourages us to bring it better and better every year. Today, curtain have gone up for the 7th IDS FFK, promising great films, great audience, and 5 days of togetherness. I'm grateful to our Honorable Minister, Sri Thiruvanchur Radhakrishnan, for agreeing to inaugurate this event. He has always been a support and pushes the Academy to do better work each time. We welcome you, sir. Sri Rajiv Mehrotra is the Managing Trustee of Public Service Broadcasting Trust. He is a guest whom we have wanted for many years. Rajiv, through his work, has changed the face of documentary filmmaking in India by providing funding to young filmmakers. We welcome you and hope all the aspiring documentary filmmakers present here will make the best use of your presence. Welcome you, sir. Shri Sapal, the CEO of Rajya Sabha TV and officer on duty to the Vice President of India, will join us in few moments. I welcome him too. Others on the chairs. Yeah, I also welcome Mrs. Deepa Nair. Does not really need a welcome, as she is actually a partner of us in all our success. But I welcome Mrs. Deepa Nair, MD of KSFDZ. Others on the dais are my colleagues, Sri S. Rajendra Nair, the Secretary of Chalachitra Academy, and Mrs. Meena Paul, the Artistic Director of the festival. We have our distinguished jury, filmmakers from all over India, and the famed Kerala audience. I welcome you all and wish you all 5 days of happy viewing and interactions. Thank you very much.
This is the moment we have been waiting for. I invite Sri Thiruvanchur Radhakrishnan, Honorable Minister for Forest, Environment, Sports and Cinema, to light the auspicious lamp. May I request Honorable Minister to deliver the inaugural address.
സഹോദരങ്ങളെ സ്നേഹിതരെ, there is no language for cinema. We see cinema by their acts. So I am shifting to my own language, my mother language. സംസ്ഥാന ചലച്ചിത്ര അക്കാദമിയുടെ ആഭിമുഖ്യത്തിൽ 7ാമത്തെ ഇൻ്റർനാഷണൽ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ആൻഡ് ഷോർട്ട് ഫിലിം ഫെസ്റ്റിവലാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ആരംഭിക്കുന്നത്. വളരെ ചുരുങ്ങിയ കാലം കൊണ്ട് തന്നെ അന്തർദേശീയ രംഗത്ത് അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന വിധത്തിലേക്ക് ഇതിനെ ഉയർത്തിയ ഈ ലഘുചിത്ര ഫെസ്റ്റിവലിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ സഹോദരങ്ങളെയും ഞാൻ സ്വന്തം ഭാഷയിൽ സ്നേഹത്തോടുകൂടി അഭിനന്ദിക്കുകയാണ്. ദേശീയ തലത്തിൽ മത്സരത്തിനായി 8 ലോങ് ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററികളും 24 ലഘു ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററികളും ഷോർട്ട് ഫിക്ഷൻ ഇനത്തിൽപ്പെട്ട 34 ഇനങ്ങളും 7 ആനിമേഷൻ ചിത്രങ്ങളും ക്യാമ്പസുകളിൽ നിർമ്മിച്ച 8 ചിത്രങ്ങളും മ്യൂസിക് വീഡിയോ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ 16 ചിത്രങ്ങളും. ഇതാണ് നമ്മളിവിടെ പ്രേക്ഷകരുടെ മുമ്പിൽ നിരത്തുന്ന വിഭവങ്ങൾ. 34 ഇൻ്റർനാഷണൽ ചിത്രങ്ങൾ, മിഡിൽ ഈസ്റ്റ് കേന്ദ്രീകരിച്ച 5 ചിത്രങ്ങൾ, വനിതാ ചലച്ചിത്ര നിർമ്മാതാക്കളുടെ 17 ചിത്രങ്ങൾ, പരിസ്ഥിതി സംബന്ധിച്ച് 5 ചിത്രങ്ങൾ, അനുസ്മരണ ചിത്രങ്ങളായി 10 എണ്ണം. അങ്ങനെ സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ തലങ്ങളിലും പെട്ട ചിത്രങ്ങൾ ഇതിനകത്ത് ഉൾക്കൊള്ളിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇങ്ങനെ 200-ൽ പരം ചിത്രങ്ങൾ 5 ദിവസങ്ങളിലായി ഇവിടെ പ്രദർശിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. ഈ ചിത്രങ്ങൾക്ക് പിന്നിൽ പ്രവർത്തിച്ച മുഴുവൻ ആളുകളെയും മലയാളികളുടെ പേരിൽ, ഈ സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ പേരിൽ ഞാൻ ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി അഭിനന്ദിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുകയാണ്. മുഴുനീള ചിത്രങ്ങൾ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററിയും തമ്മിൽ അടിസ്ഥാനപരമായ പ്രത്യേകതകൾ നിങ്ങൾക്കെല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം. ഫീച്ചർ ഫിലിമിന് കൊമേഴ്ഷ്യൽ മാർക്കറ്റ് കൂടി പിടിച്ച് നിൽക്കണം. ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററികൾ താരതമ്യേന നിർമ്മാണ ചെലവ് കുറഞ്ഞ ചിത്രങ്ങളാണ്. ഒരു പ്രത്യേക വിഷയം ഫോക്കസ് ചെയ്ത് ആശയ സംവേദനത്തിന് ഫലപ്രദമായി ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ചിത്രങ്ങൾക്ക് കഴിയും. സാമൂഹ്യ മാറ്റത്തിന് വഴിയൊരുക്കാൻ കഴിവുള്ളതാണ് ഈ പല ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററികളും. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ ആരംഭിക്കുന്ന ഈ ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ സ്വാഭാവികമായും സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ പല പ്രതലങ്ങളിലും നമുക്ക് ചിന്ത നമ്മളുടെ മുമ്പിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുന്നതിന് കഴിയും എന്ന് ഞാൻ കണക്കാക്കുകയാണ്. ഇത് വമ്പിച്ച വിജയമാവട്ടെ എന്ന് ഞാൻ പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. ഇവിടെ നമ്മൾ അവാർഡുകളും കൊടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. സ്വാഭാവികമായിട്ട് ഈ അവാർഡുകൾ ഒരു വലിയ തുകയാണോ എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഞാനാണ് എന്ന് പറയില്ല. പക്ഷെ പ്രോത്സാഹനമാണ്, അതിൻ്റെ പിന്നിലുള്ള പ്രോത്സാഹനമാണ് പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഘടകം. അങ്ങനെ നമ്മൾ നല്ല രൂപത്തിൽ നമുക്കിത് പൂർത്തിയാക്കി 5 ദിവസം കൊണ്ട് എല്ലാ ആളുകൾക്കും സന്തോഷകരമായ ദിനങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ ഈ തലസ്ഥാന നഗരിയിൽ ഉണ്ടാവട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാനിത് ഔപചാരികമായി ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തതായി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. നിങ്ങളുടെ എല്ലാം നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു.
Thank you, sir. May I invite Mrs. Beena Paul, Artistic Director, to introduce the festival and important guests.
It is my proud privilege to be here to introduce the 7th International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala. Today, this morning, we all started a small journey of discovering films made not only from all over the world, but also within our own country. I know that for a lot of you, the kind of filmmaking you have all chosen to do is lonely. Lonely, not only because you don't find any monetary backing, no commercial outlets, but also because there is a great alienation from the audience. I'm sure many of you documentary filmmakers don't really know who's seeing your films. Not only documentary, I'm talking about short films, I'm talking about music videos. I mean, the net is flooded, I know, with all this. But there is a kind of anonymity which this festival wants to break. This is the meaning of this festival. You have the greatest audience. I think the Kerala audience is the most famed audience, perhaps all over the world. So it's really wonderful that our government has taken this initiative to set up this platform where we can all meet, discuss, talk, and see each other. You see your audience, they see you, And I must also tell you, they are a very vocal, responsive audience, which is good and bad. You might hear exactly what your film is like. But it is truly going to be a good experience. So I tell you, 5 days in Kerala will be wonderful. I also am happy. I want to just introduce some of our guests over here. I'm really happy that Rajiv is here. Rajiv Mehrotra. It is really rare to have public cultural institutions headed by, let's use a word from his dictionary, enlightened people. He has really helped change the way documentaries are made, the way people are able to get. I mean, unfortunately, we have a bit of a history, as you all know, with Films Division. I think that has been redefined, and I think even Films Division has taken the cue, and things are changing all over. So we're very happy to have Rajiv here. As our chairman said, please make best use of the opportunity. His coffers are full. Also, we have a very distinguished jury. The belief that films are not always judged best by filmmakers and critics alone has been a controversial philosophy that the festival has sort of followed through its years. We believe that documentaries need also social critique, different ways of looking at it. So we have a very, very distinguished jury, I must say. We have Mr. Harsh Mandar, Suzy Taru, and Hong Hai-suk from Korea. Thank you so much for all being here. I know it's not really in your beat of things, but I hope you enjoy yourselves. For fiction, we have Golda Selim, who's come all the way from France. She's a well-known producer, distributor, and also been in animation. We have Royston Abel. Royston, we brought you to Kerala or Trivandrum finally for a film job. And we have Navroz Contractor, who's an old friend of the festival. Navroz has very kindly instituted an award for the best documentary cameraman at this festival. This has arisen from the need to understand that even with digital forms, there is a discipline and a rigor that is required when you shoot films on digital, especially in documentary. So Navroz is here with us. So this is our distinguished jury. This year, in association with the International Association of Women in Radio and Television, we have also instituted an award of excellence for the most gender-sensitive film at the festival in both the fiction and in the non-fiction category. Our jury will be choosing that film as well. Anupama Srinivasan is here. She is the General Secretary of the IAWRT, a filmmaker herself, and has curated this series of fiction films made by women in Asia. I think the films shown today have been highly appreciated. You can look forward to more films from women all over Asia. Our filmmaker in focus is Sabha Diwan. Sabha is here. Sabha and her cinematographer and co-director Rahul Roy are examples of filmmakers who have created a body of work that almost reads as a critical treatise on gender and communal issues in the country. They have generously shared their work and time to be with us over the next 5 days. Thank you, Sabha. I welcome you. We are having a workshop on challenges of science filmmaking in India. I'm grateful to Dr. T.V. Venkatesan, who is an old colleague, and Nimish Kapoor for organizing this in Trivandrum. The deliberations are important because today with technology as it is, anyone can make a film, but who takes on issues like education, science, these are the issues that need to be taken on, and can anybody do any film? We have gathered here some of the most distinguished filmmakers from all over India who have also been fighting this lonely battle of what is science film, how do you grapple with communicating science. So we have Gohar, we have Nandan, we have Madhu, F.B. Khan, Indraneel, who have come from all over, who are going to deliberate on all this, and we are hoping that there are something positive and some, at least in pedagogy or something, there is some re-looking at how filmmaking is viewed. We also have filmmakers from India and across the world who have traveled to present their films, who are not in competition. Of course, there are filmmakers from competition and non-competition. We have Inka, Anudha, Urvasi, Arya, so many of you who have come. What are the strategies? How do you strategize to actually reach your target audiences? So that will happen on the 20th. We are doing that in association with the India Documentary Foundation and Sophie Shivaraman. I hope you all come for this. Also bonding and enjoying the monsoon of Kerala. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have an important guest who has, through his work, contributed a change in the documentary production scenario of the country. Shri Rajiv Mehrotra, Managing Trustee of the Public Service Broadcasting Trust. May I invite him to give the keynote address. Please, sir.
Gosh, I don't recognize myself here. Mr. Priyadarshan, Minister Radhakrishnan, Maithili, who just arrived, my old friend Beena Paul, who's managed to get me out of my hole to this public space, Ms. Deepa Nair, and Mr. Rajendra Nair. I must confess that I'm somewhat awed by the evening. I have never had such an honor. I have never been on stage at the inauguration of a film festival anywhere. So you will have to forgive me for being a little nervous. But nonetheless, I feel deeply honored to have been invited to deliver this keynote address at this inauguration of the International Documentary and Short Film Festival of Kerala, organized by a really remarkable organization under the stewardship of both Mr. Priyadarshan and I think very much of Beena Paul, who is a very, how do I put it, is so familiar to all of us that her lure to Trivandrum is irresistible. And, you know, the Academy, under their stewardship, has been a pathbreaker. Film festivals every year, and that's no mean achievement, and of course encouraged by a very discriminating and cinematically literate audience in Trivandrum. And I think that in itself is a great cause for celebration for those of us who are sort of the back end, the backroom boys of filmmaking, that you exist to celebrate the kind of work that we try and produce. So on behalf of the community of filmmakers, of those of us who are on both sides of the camera, our gratitude to the Chalchitra Academy, to all of you as audiences for being there. The documentary film here is not merely a sideshow, as it is at many festivals, but the centerpiece, as it should be, of the growing vitality of its movement in India. The essential significance and contribution of the documentary as a form emanates from what Grayson described as the creative actualization of reality. It is art that is an actualization of reality, as opposed to recreation of reality. And that makes it a very potent, potentially potent force. And so I thought I'd delve briefly. We celebrate the documentary, but maybe a reflection on why the documentary is important, or more accurately perhaps, why is the independent documentary important. And today, more than ever before, the independent documentary is the cornerstone of a critical niche in the democratization of the non-print media. You know, with the cacophony of commercially driven television, the electronic media is the dominant voice, but it seeks to promote the agendas of its owners, be the state, businesses, or political parties, and not the least, its advertisers. As we sit back as passive viewers of this cacophony, we need to remind ourselves of the agendas that drive what we see. even as we are, lulled into the sort of, how do I put it, the lure of rapidly changing, captivating images, that must inherently cater to the imperatives of advertisers and these agendas. And so television today is actually delivering eyeballs to advertisers, to political parties' agendas, rather than content for its own sake. And, it's interesting that few television channels make significant profits, despite this, sort of the large volume of advertising that drives them. And, it's often argued that, diversity comes from the fact that there are so many different channels, and so it's inevitable that the diversity of opinions and views that are essential to any democracy are articulated as a consequence. But the very nature of the medium, its structures, its funding, that is not true. To function as a watchdog, a space for real dialogue and discussion, and it is imperative in a democracy that these diversities of opinion, perspectives, and realities are articulated and held up as a myriad mirrors for our citizens and our government and those who shape the agendas of governance. And it is here, in this context, as the print media rapidly seems to recede, and one of the owners of the Times of India famously said, and quoted in an article in the New Yorker, and if you haven't read it, please search the net and look at Citizen Jain, an article that really outlines and details the philosophies and the workings of big media houses. And he said that I do not sell news. I buy and I sell and I position advertising. And the cultures of consumerism that go with advertising, which end up thus excluding from the target audience the disadvantaged and the disenfranchised, people who are not consumers of goods and services that advertisers want to promote. So it is really this exclusion of, three-quarters of India perhaps, that is the critical lack, the critical gap that the electronic media and the new media is compromising, diminishes fundamental democratic freedoms and choices while reinforcing the cultures of the privileged. No commercially driven media, especially expensive electronic media, can articulate concerns and issues that run counter to the agendas of large advertisers, ranging from the very culture of consumerism that they must promote to specific issues, whether it is junk food, the problem of obesity, or pesticides in packaged soft drinks. And, we have been watching and reading in the newspapers about how Reliance has taken over a major television channel in India, and we know what the implications of that. The question is, of course, how do we respond to the challenge? Few would argue that any form of regulation by the state has a grave risk for abuse, even though no freedom is absolute. For instance, people have argued that we should have no form of regulation, and I think that's a safe position to take, managed or controlled. But there are limits to freedom, and those limits have to be exercised with great caution. And so my vote would be for no regulation. However, we can legitimately require transparent public disclosure of conflicts of interest. Who owns different media companies? Who are the advertisers? Which programs are sponsored? I don't know how many of you noticed that when political leaders, particularly of particular persuasions who had a lot of money, were interviewed on public television and television, not public television, I correct myself, though there was another scandal on that issue, who were interviewed on television, their interviews were juxtaposed by commercials promoting the candidate and his party, that I articulate some of the aspirations for the independent documentary. And again, I would just like to reaffirm sort of every few paragraphs, the independent documentary, so that they represent independent voices and not voices that are influenced by these interests. So the documentary should present content of significant value especially on issues unlikely to be produced by mainstream funding, by mainstream outlets, by mainstream television and other spaces managed or funded by the government. It must set exemplary standards of quality, serve as examples of good state, good taste, of decency and values. It must be impartial, it must be independent and credible. It should draw on in-depth research, building its arguments with intellectual rigor. It should evolve narratives that inform structure, argument, and language are accessible beyond the elites. The documentary needs to synchronize with the principles of a good public enterprise committed to transparency and accountability. It needs to be the contemporary repository of its heritage and the best of its culture, using its platform to preserve, promote, and perpetuate this. It must set standards of excellence, of experimentation and innovation as it remains on the cutting edge of technologies. Much of this applies to most forms of art. And I have, my friend, well, actually I shouldn't acknowledge anyone on the jury because, as a friend at this time, because we have 4 films in competition. However, a very noted theatre director. And so these are principles that apply across the board to all art, and certainly all art in the public domain. So the documentary film today is not merely the supply push of development support programs, of what a centralized bureaucracy or a group of experts believe the community must be told. That is its history, but that is changing. So the imperative is to create a public culture through the airwaves that is plural and equitable in its representation, and that the public entitlement to the creation and shaping of content has not grown in proportion to the growth of the media. So even these independent voices are usually voices of the elite. And so we need to cultivate, and nurture a constituency of documentary filmmakers and content producers, not just of those of us who gather at film festivals to celebrate each other, but from the grassroots, who can communicate their own realities as they see and experience them. That is the real future and the promise of the technological revolution in the production of documentary films. There are several people here who are already doing remarkable work in this area, and she'd mentioned Anupama Srinivasan, who did a project with us precisely on these lines, is empowering people who would not ordinarily be able to articulate their agendas, their experience of life, who may not have the sophistication, in inverted commas, to use the technology or the form to express themselves, to enable and facilitate them. Equally important, we must create broad-based public access to the documentary film. And I do not just mean at film festivals and public screenings. We must create mechanisms that will enable civil society and community groups, individuals, from the bottom up to access the airwaves and bandwidth, not only on the new technologies that are our future, but in their vocabularies. So our documentary films have to reach out beyond the discourse of English, beyond the discourse of the elites, down to the disadvantaged and the disenfranchised that organized media does not reach out to. So we need to empower them, we need to train them, and we need to fund them. And this is a discussion for another context as to what would be the model that would do that. Obviously, this is where the state has a role, but how can we achieve this distancing the state from managing that content and managing those perspectives, and yet for us to reach out and enable and empower these voices. Our own efforts, and I will take this liberty of speaking briefly about our own efforts at the Public Service Broadcasting Trust. We're very privileged to be led by 3 iconic filmmakers. Thiruvananthapuram's own Adur Gopalakrishnan is our chairperson. We have Shyam Benegal, Mrinal Sen, people like Fali Nariman, Sharmila Tagore, and Kiran Kanik. And we have struggled, and we are still an embryonic initiative to demonstrate the potential and imperative of a truly independent initiative to promote truly independent documentary films. Over a decade, we have funded more than 500 independent documentary films made by 400 odd filmmakers. And these filmmakers are our ambassadors, are our spokespersons, that we have never once interfered in the content of the film and sought to enable them to make their films as they wish to from their point of view. There has been an active mentoring process, but the final call is that of the filmmaker. And why has this been possible, people ask us often. And sadly, there are two reasons. One reason is that our films are not widely seen. So because we have very distinguished trustees, the state is reluctant to intervene, and because they're not widely seen, and the state helps ensure that they're not widely seen, it doesn't matter for the state that we may do a film on the Armed Forces Act in Kashmir or elsewhere and are very critical of the state. And how do they do that? They do that because they control the rights, they control 50% of the gross revenues, they control what we can do with the film. So the films are made, but our ability to disseminate and distribute them are severely limited and controlled. And also that we have just discovered to our horror that grant funds, according to government rules, may not be used for dissemination. So the government will give you money to make a film, but they will not give you 1% of that budget to disseminate it. So we have to find our own resources to disseminate it and give 50% of any gross revenues to the government, and the remaining 50% is shared with the filmmaker. That leaves us very little money to actually distribute the film. But yet, I think we survive because of the support of audiences such as yours, and the fact that our films have won 41 national awards from the President of India, more than 180 awards around the world, and one for every 4 films we have produced. They've had more than 700 film festival screenings in India and around the world, at about one a week, and they've been screened at festivals from Berlin to Karachi, Yamagata to Dhaka, New York to Durban, Tehran, Istanbul to Delhi. Our films compete with the best in the world, even though they're made on comparatively paltry budgets of less than 5 lakhs a year. So 5 lakhs a film. So we're in the international marketplace, we're making a film for less than $10,000, which is competing with, you know what budgets are, millions and millions of dollars. And in fact, of the 4 films that have been selected for this festival, 3 of them are by women, and the second is co-directed by a woman. So, I mean, that tells you that how successful women directors have been in our initiatives. But before I wind up, let me just sort of flag a few of the silver linings, even as we have been complaining of the challenges. And the previous government has earmarked in the current plan 12.5 crores to be allocated to NGOs for the production of documentary films. We don't know what will happen to the money with the new government, but it's somewhere there as a line item. The other exciting thing is that is the growing autonomy of the independent filmmaker, who are becoming more and more passionate about the films they want to make, what they wish to say, and about owning their work. You know, PSBT is more than 10 years old. In the early years of our work, we found that the proposals that came into us were usually films that filmmakers felt we would want them to make, rather than the films they wanted to make. And that shift has been extremely heartwarming, that the filmmakers are finding the confidence to make their films, their voices, their treatment, their creative impulses. And so they have increasingly begun to invest their own resources. And so they are less dependent on organized, structured funding than ever before. But that has inevitably meant, of course, that they don't have enough money to make films as well as they might. And so we have been lobbying, and sadly the government, where else to go for that kind of money, for a few substantial national film production fellowships of maybe, say 50 lakhs of film, to begin to empower small groups of filmmakers to aspire to the best international standards. I mean, I'm not talking about international standards for its own sake, but as a very important aspiration, so that the work even our work that gets a lot of exposure at film festivals and critical acclaim is not really going out mainstream into the rest of the world to large audiences for a variety of reasons. And I think really it comes from the filmmaker being fettered by not having enough money for a number of days of filming, not enough money to be able to research, to be able to invest in the kind of technology that, say, broadcasts in the West would require. And yet, in so many ways, the documentary in India is reinventing itself. And thank goodness that we are moving away from the dull, pedantic, commentary-driven narrative style, embellished with the occasional talking head, promoted by the films division that has dominated our filmmaking for so long. So we're now seeing innovative treatment and structures that are more energetic and engaging. Our films are driven by personal passion, rather than always reasoned argument based on empirical data that formed the classical television documentary. Formal structures are often abandoned for free-flowing stream of consciousness and a juxtaposition of styles. And this is not a bad thing. Audiences for documentary films are mushrooming around the country, even as the number of film festivals and other institutional screenings grow. This is healthy. There is a growing demand pull. And yet, as I said, and I suggested earlier, that the genre languishes in the shadow of the feature film. As I've sought to emphasize earlier, the independent documentary is vital to our democratic discourse. The production revolution in the documentary film needs to be matched with one in its distribution and dissemination. India has more than 800 television channels. Few, if any, carry significant documentaries, and of course, not one of them is dedicated exclusively to the documentary film. And a frequent irritation, and that's all I can call it, is the absurd obligation of censorship for the documentary film. In an era of globalized television, this issue needs very urgent revisiting. So we can produce a documentary film, we can sell it to CNN, and it does not, and be seen in India. We can sell it to the BBC, we can sell it actually to any television channel and have millions of people see it without a censor certificate. But if I want the film to be screened at this festival, the festival has to get an exemption from the government of India or a censor certificate. It is an absurd contradiction and a fundamental violation, I believe, of our freedoms of expression and democracy. Well, I've gone on too long already, because when I was sitting here, I had friends in the audience who said, well, how many people are going to speak? And I said, well, it seems quite a few. And I promised that brevity would be the soul of wit, but I have already violated that principle. So let me just end with sort of a memory. I went to film school in the United States, in America, and when I walked in for the first time, there was this huge portrait of Alfred Hitchcock. And it said that in feature films, the director is God. But for the documentary film, God is the director. So I can just say, Om, and we live in hope. But I would be failing if I didn't make an acknowledgement. The wonderful artistic director of this festival, Beena Paul. But I thought that we owed her for the remarkable work that she has done, both as a professional editor and for the agendas. Thank you. I was going to call for an applause. And I have no doubt, both, that the movement the Chalachitra Academy will continue to thrive and grow, even as we will desperately miss Beena. But as I was saying to her, whispering in her ear, that I think the community of filmmakers will be delighted and privileged that in her professional role as an editor, she will be amongst us. Thank you, Beena.
Thank you, sir. And our next program is the catalogue release. May I invite Sri Tiruvanchur Radhakrishnan, Honorable Minister for Sports, Environment and Cinema, to release the festival catalogue to Sri Rajiv Mehrotra. I now request the chairman to release the festival bulletin, Ms. Maithili, to receive the first bulletin. May I request Ms. Deepa Nair, MD of KSFDC, in all ventures, to please felicitate the gathering.
Honorable Minister for Cinema, respected personalities on and off the dais. In fact, I'm very happy to be part of this inaugural function of the International Documentary Film Festival. It gives me very sweet memories when I'm here on dais at Kairali, especially because 2 years back we had given this new facility to Trivandrum. KSFDC has since then grown quite a lot. We have been flowing a lot of income from the theatres, and the next 5 years, I hope and wish and pray that it will be a treat for Trivandrum. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the end of this program, I request Sri S. Rajendran Nair, Secretary of Chalachitra Academy, to propose the vote of thanks.
ഷോർട്ട് ഫിലിം ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ, ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഇന്ത്യയിൽ കേരളത്തിൽ മാത്രമാണ്. കേരളം എപ്പോഴും പല കാര്യങ്ങളിലും ഒന്നാമതാണ്. ടെക്നോ പാർക്ക് തുടങ്ങുന്ന കാര്യത്തിലായാലും, വിദേശ മലയാളികൾക്ക് ഒരു കൈത്താങ്ങായി ഒരു ഓർഗനൈസേഷൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന കാര്യത്തിലായാലും, സിനിമയ്ക്ക് ഒരു അക്കാഡമി ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യത്തിലായാലും, മൂന്നാമത് സിനിമാ മേഖലയിലുള്ള സഹകലാകാരന്മാർക്കും വേണ്ടിയും സാംസ്കാരിക പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നടത്തുന്ന എല്ലാ പ്രവർത്തകർക്കു വേണ്ടിയും കേരള സംസ്ഥാന സർക്കാർ ഒരുക്കിയ ഒരു ക്ഷേമനിധി ബോർഡ്. തീർച്ചയായും അതൊരു ചലഞ്ചാണ്. ആർക്കും ഒരു സ്ഥാപനത്തിലും എല്ലാ കാലത്തും തുടരാൻ കഴിയില്ല. ശ്രീ രാജീവ് മൽഹോത്ര, we are thankful for you for your valuable insight into documentary filmmaking. ശ്രീ പ്രിയദർശൻ, KSFDC MD ശ്രീമതി ദീപ നായർ, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഞങ്ങളുടെ ജനറൽ കൗൺസിൽ മെമ്പേഴ്സ്, വൈസ് ചെയർമാൻ, എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ് കൗൺസിൽ മെമ്പേഴ്സ്, മീഡിയ, എല്ലാവർക്കും